Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The Ministry of National Security sets up a committee to investigate that shooting at Government House.
The Minister of Health discusses millions in unpaid bills owed to Princess Margaret Hospital.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, a former police commissioner and a former Defense Force Commodore have been appointed to a 4-member review committee that was set up to investigate circumstances related to the fatal shooting of a veteran Defense Force Marine while on duty at Government House last month. National Security Minister Marvin Dames says the investigation will focus on security protocols and possible breaches on the morning of that murder. JASMIN Brown reports.
The National Security Minister not only revealed who will be on that committee, he also revealed what they will be doing over the next 2 months.
This committee is being tasked with reviewing the incident and ultimately determining whether or not there were any breaches or failures in security at Government House during the morning of the incident.
The 4 retired law enforcement officers were appointed to the review committee that is tasked with investigating the circumstances surrounding the murder of Petty Officer Philip Perpall. Perpall, a veteran Marine, was killed on the morning of April 28th while on duty at Government House. The committee comprises of former Police Commissioner Reginald Ferguson, former Royal Bahamas Defense Force Commodore Roderick Bowe, and former police officers Douglas Hanna and Paul Jones. National Security Minister Marvin Dames made the announcement on Wednesday morning.
In order to address this incident in a transparent manner, I am appointing 4 eminently qualified professionals, and this review committee has the full backing of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and are mandated to conduct their investigations over the next 2 months, after which they will report their findings, which will be communicated to the Bahamian public.
Dames said the committee's main objective will be to make recommendations for security improvements. He made it clear the probe will not interfere with the criminal investigation.
The main objective behind all of this is, at the end of the day, once the committee would have concluded their findings, they will also be making recommendations for improvement. And that is the critical objective behind this overall inquiry. Because you remember now, the investigations into the death of Petty Officer Perpall has been concluded by the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and so we want to keep that separate.
Last week, able seaman Javon Seymour was charged with Perpall's murder and the attempted murders of Calvin Hanna and Ellis Ramming at Government House. Seymour was not required to enter a plea to the charges during his initial court appearance and was remanded to custody until his next court appearance on June 20th. Reporting for Our News, I'm JASMIN Brown.
An interesting turn in the Shane Gibson case after Supreme Court Justice Indra Charles announced today that she is stepping back ahead of the trial. Gibson, who was the former Labor and National Insurance Minister, was accused of soliciting $330,000 and accepting $280,000 in kickbacks from contractor Jonathan Ash. The matter has already had several trial dates vacated, and there is a possibility it can change again. It's currently set for September 23rd. Gibson's attorney, Damien Gomez, told Our News outside court that the team's next step is to speak with the acting Chief Justice about having the matter transferred to a criminal court.
A judge assigned to criminal matters will hear and conduct the trial before the jury.
Charles recently ruled that Gibson would go to trial despite a constitutional motion filed by his legal team. Last year, lawyers filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court which alleged that the prosecution's 2 key witnesses were coached by their attorneys and police officers who allegedly backdated their witness statements. In other news, Friday will mark the 2nd anniversary of the Free National Movement's landslide victory in the 2017 general election. Since taking office, the MINNIS-led government has celebrated several successes while defending quite a few blunders.
Victory today is mine.
The FNM rolled into office on May 10, 2017, snagging 35 of 39 seats in Parliament and knocking out many of the PLP's heavy hitters, including former Prime Minister Perry Christie. 2 years later, the MINNIS administration has had its fair shares of highs and lows. A major plus thus far, the decrease in murders by 26%.
You will begin to see a change.
And the change surely did come with a recent shakeup within the Royal Bahamas Police Force that saw many within the top brass sent on administrative leave, a move the opposition has called political. Then there is the recent signing of a letter of intent for the sale of the Grand Lucayne Resort to Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited and the ITM Group, and the awarding of a contract for the development of Nassau's cruise port. The FNM government has also yielded positive results in the area of tourism, marking historic tourist arrival numbers last year.
For the first 2 months of 2019, while I had initially projected it would be about 12-15%, I was wrong. It was up 23.7%.
Despite those accomplishments, the first 2 years for the MINNIS administration haven't been the smoothest. Bahamians were outraged last year after this announcement by Finance Minister Peter Turnquest on an increase in value-added tax, even after ridiculing the previous government over introducing the tax.
An increase in the rate of value-added tax from the current 7.5% to 12%, effective July 1.
Stop playing games! You want Brent Timmer them and Peter Turnquest, you should be ashamed of yourself. You want my schoolmate, you can't give us what?
Then there was Oban.
Hi, Mr. Judah. Just one quick question. We just want to know who's going to fund this project, Mr. Judah.
Who was your purpose meeting tonight, Mr. Jacona?
Does Oban Energy fund the funding for this project?
The government caught a lot of heat after it was revealed Oban Energy's non-executive chairman, Peter Krieger, signed the name of Oban's then-president, Satpal Duna, on the heads of agreement in the office of the Prime Minister. Days later, that would be dubbed by the MINNIS administration as only ceremonial.
We made a number of missteps in the Oban Energy projects.
And since then, the Prime Minister hasn't been interested in talking about it.
Listen, I'm talking about futuristic. Oban is not. Listen, man.
And who could forget the botched Frank Smith trial?
Topping news tonight, former Senator Frank Smith is a free man after a magistrate ruled that the prosecution failed to make a case against him.
Firstly, I'm grateful to God Almighty, who is my shield and my sword.
Smith walked out of the magistrate's court on February 1st, all smiles, after Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt acquitted him of bribery and extortion charges. In her ruling, Pratt cried shame on the involvement of two cabinet ministers, Dwayne Sands and Marvin Dames, and said there were too many inconsistencies and discrepancies. Since then, the opposition has repeatedly called for the resignation of those two ministers. Then there's the continued trouble on the labor front, from the increase in the unemployment rate to the unrest within the public service.
On the road, fighting for our rights. Stand in the road. Tell Dwayne, Sands, come out and talk to us. That's what we want. They run us out the hospital.
Another sore spot for the current administration is Bahamas Power and Light, whose entire board was dismissed, leading to a bitter back and forth between the former chairperson, Darnell Osborne, and Works Minister Desmond Bannister. The public awaits a promised probe into what really happened.
What that got to do with over there?
Over the hill, Travis.
And what I asked about.
Okay, well, I answered you.
You're not giving nothing?
I'm talking about over the hill today, Travis. Stop looking at those texts, man, and stick to the script.
I don't have my phone up there, Brian.
Okay.
In other news, a female and juvenile male were brought before the magistrate's court on murder charges. Jillian Gray was at court and filed this report.
A 17-year-old male appeared before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt on 1 count of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. His co-accused is 32-year-old Natasha Charles in the blue jacket, who was charged with conspiracy to commit murder. The pair were charged in connection with the shooting death of 34-year-old father of 2 Brian Smith, who was gunned down over the Easter holiday weekend on Foster Street. While in court, Charles's lawyer said her client alleges she was treated in a degrading and inhumane manner while in custody. She alleges that she did not eat and was not taken to the restroom, thus resulting in her relieving herself on the holding cell floor. Magistrate Ferguson Pratt made note of the accusation and scheduled a hearing for Monday to adjudicate the matter. The juvenile male, who was represented by attorney Bijan Ferguson, will also return with his co-accused on Monday for a bail hearing. Until then, Charles was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections, and the juvenile male was remanded to the Adolescent Center at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Well, 3 men were arraigned in the magistrate's court on drug-related charges. Howard Roll in the dark blue shirt, Clyde Dawkins in the white shirt, and Pizarro Brennan in the plaid shirt were charged with 1 count of possession of dangerous drugs with the intent to supply, 1 count of conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs with the intent to supply, 1 count of importation of dangerous drugs, and 1 count of conspiracy to import dangerous drugs. It is alleged that on May 3rd, the trio was found in waters off South Andros with 1,627 pounds of Indian hemp valued at over $1.6 million. They pleaded not guilty to the charges and were remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until August 21st. Meanwhile, Suriname national Sergio Edmond in the black jacket was charged in connection with a recent drug find at Lynden Pindling International Airport. The 21-year-old was allegedly found in possession of 1.8 pounds of cocaine, said to be valued at $10,000. He was charged with 1 count of possession of dangerous drugs with the intent to supply, 1 count of conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs with the intent to supply, 1 count of importation of dangerous drugs, and 1 count of conspiracy to import dangerous drugs. Edmond pleaded not guilty to counts 1, 2, and 4, but pleaded guilty to count 3. He was remanded to prison and returns to court on May 17th. Still to come, millions of dollars in PMH patient bills deemed unpayable. Plus, gaming operators hit back at the Deputy Prime Minister. Stay tuned.